Hello YouTube, this is Neon, and today I'm going to be doing another episode of From Coping to Thriving with Life, in which I talk about my personal life and how I am doing just that. I just had a fit of anger. I dropped my timer on the floor and I had to fight off or stave off another fit of anger because as I'm pressing the record button, it's not recording. I had to press it 4 times. Little things like this cause me to want to have fits of anger, and sometimes I do, which usually involves me screaming and cussing. I see myself as one gentleman who had heart problems, and he was telling either me or a group of people that I was in, he was just kind of talking about how his doctor told him he had to deal with his anger because it was causing him heart problems and high blood pressure, and he needed to get his anger under control. And I've never been told that by a doctor because I've been working on my anger for a long time. So now that I'm in my mid-40s, I do have more of a grip on it. But I relate to him because whenever I do mess up and I drop something and then I start cussing and using the Lord's name in vain, and I have to take a deep breath, I can actually feel my heart racing, I can feel my temperature rise. So I can say that, or I can surmise that if I hadn't been working on my anger and was reacting like that constantly, I would probably have heart problems as well. Because when I just had this little fit, when I dropped my timer and started cussing, I could feel that, what I just described. So one of the ways that I deal with my anger issues is that it's with visualizing, sending, and receiving love. Sometimes I really hit the bullseye. Something happens, I want to have a fit of anger, and I visualize sending and receiving love from myself or from God. And that takes the anger, and it's almost like putting a top on a frying pan that's burst into flames, and you put the top on it, right, when your grease starts burning, and the fire just goes away. And that's what visualization of sending and receiving love does for me with respect to anger. It sucks away all of the energy out of the anger, and I'm able to stay calm, and if I drop something, pick it up. Whatever's needed to solve the issue, I'm able to calmly figure it out and solve the issue, and not make it worse through fuming and huffing and puffing. That's one of the ways I cope with life, and that's one of the tools that I've been using for quite a few years, these visualizations to cope with being around people, being in public, thoughts that constantly haunt me. I've talked about in other videos how I grew up in such an abusive home. Physical, verbal, sexual, emotional, neglect, psychological. So I'm haunted by those thoughts. I'm haunted by horribly embarrassing things that I've done, or situations I put myself in which I could have been in a lot of danger. Situations where I've been intimidated or hit by somebody. Any number of situations. And what I find is that I can't control the thoughts. They come constantly. What has been working for me is visualizing, sending, and receiving love. There's things I'm working on now that are improving my life, and they require my attention. Napoleon Hill talks about, in his 17 principles of success, he talks about controlling your attention as one of those 17 principles. And that involves focusing my attention on what I want to happen versus focusing my attention on what I fear might happen. It involves controlling my thoughts. It's so important that I control my thoughts when I'm working on things that are going to benefit my life. As different crazy thoughts come to my head, I've been coping to thriving with these constant thoughts coming into my head by visualizing sending and receiving love. If it's an embarrassing or humiliating or traumatic situation that's coming into my head, when I'm focusing on something that's productive, I will re-envision that situation and send and receive love to myself, to that person. And it just takes the power of these thoughts to completely stymie my progress in what I'm doing. This is progressive. This is not something that I have mastered, but it is something that slowly over the years I'm getting better at utilizing so that I have more control over my thoughts and control over my attention so that I can focus on what I need to do to make my life work. Very, very important. What I had planned on talking about at first was my New Year's. I slept through New Year's. I really didn't do anything special. I didn't sleep well. My neighborhood is not a quiet neighborhood when it comes to New Year's or 4th of July. People were setting off fireworks and you could hear people partying, and even though my neighborhood is a pretty quiet neighborhood overall, not during the holidays. So I didn't sleep that well going from New Year's Eve to New Year's. And that was okay. I slept good enough. But I did wake up at 12:15 to realize, oh, it's a new year now, because of all the fireworks and all the commotion. Apparently I slept through 15 minutes of it, and then at 12:15 I woke up. I looked at the watch, it was 12:15. The microwave clock. I made a hard decision to not go out on New Year's. I have not gone out to a club for a year, and I believe it was last New Year's was the last time I went out. For me to not go out on New Year's or New Year's Eve is a big deal. What little money I have, it is so important that I do not spend it unless it's literally an emergency. And going out on New Year's is not an emergency. It was kind of sad that it's one of those times where I can sort of feel close to people as you celebrate the New Year and you get drunk. I get drunk, and I don't feel so alone because there's that kinship, there's the goodwill that is associated with New Year's, being at a club. There's that goodwill. And for a brief time I don't feel lonely. And the next morning there's that feeling of awe. And it's almost like the sense of possibility for the new year and a sense of gratitude for having made it through another year. And I did miss out on most of that, having just slept through the new year and not spend it with friends. I don't really have hardly any friends, quite frankly, but having spent it completely alone took away most of that magic. And that's kind of sad. When I woke up the next morning, I only had a tiny little sense of possibility and a little sense of gratitude for making it through a new year. But that was the price I needed to pay to be responsible economically. Another principle of success that Napoleon Hill talks about is called budget your time and money. One of the things he talks about within that principle is that show me how you spend your time and how you spend your money, and I will show you where and what you will be 10 years from now. A lot of these success principles I'm taking to heart and I'm beginning to follow in ways that make sense to me for my life. And that's a good thing. So I made it through that period of depression going from Christmas to New Year's. in which I stayed in my room for over 5 days without leaving, and I got back to working out. I'm glad about that. I completed a week of working out, which is good. I'm sleeping at night again. Hopefully this will be for a long time. It's one of the issues with my mental health is, or one issue in my life that is affected by my mental health is my sleeping. It can be very difficult and traumatic to sleep at night. It can be very difficult and traumatic to bathe. My therapist was saying, well, that's because your biological mother would make you get in the shower and get wet and come out naked before she beat you. And that's what makes it traumatic. And that was when she was most angry. She wanted to not just beat us, but humiliate us. And she felt that if our skin was wet, more pain would be inflicted. So lots of aspects of my life are very difficult and traumatic to cope with. Sleeping is one of them. So when I can sleep at night, and when I can sleep for more than 2 hours straight, that's a good thing. And I'm there now again, and hopefully this will last for a long time. I've been focusing on things that I need to do, progressively getting better and better, and I'm happy about that. As I said, my life is steadily improving, but it's an up and down, just like a little grid, or I forget, like the ups and downs of a stock market. But it's still my life is still progressively improving. But the downsides, the upsides outweigh the downsides, but sometimes the downsides can be very low. I'm happy that as tough as life is, it is better for me. It's still not easy. It's still challenging, but it's more and more, I'm going to say, gratifying, just being able to see the improvements in my life. I want to say that as I'm speaking and as I'm doing these videos, I need to visualize sending and receiving love from you, the viewer, the precious, beautiful, valuable viewer. I want to speak concisely. I want to value your time. I want to value my own time. And one of the things that in doing these videos that can come up is, what are they going to think if I say this? What are they going to think if I say that? Versus being as honest and open, discreet certainly, as possible, and letting these talks flow. Visualizing sending and receiving love is another tool that I can do that allows me to speak, and to speak more fluidly, and to be honest and open and forthright, and yet discreet at the same time. I do want to add that I haven't had sex in like 2 weeks. I'm not happy about that. It hasn't been for lack of trying, but I can only put so much effort into that because, as I said, pursuing my goals and dreams is the #1 thing in my life. And I cannot let the crazy world of hooking up online with strangers, I can't let that consume all of my time, and I can't even let it consume a significant amount of my time. My dreams really, that's where my focus needs to be. That's about all I have time to share right now, so I'm going to cut it off there. If you like this video, please like, subscribe, share, comment, watch a commercial, recommend my videos. Do one or more of those things. Thank you. Best wishes.